Okay, cool. So thank you so much, Alim, for a warm introduction to our dear guest, Ambassador Hawa. And thank you so much, Ambassador Hawa, for sparing your precious time to speak with us. I know you're in a very tight schedule, traveling around for many things, but accepting to share with the young people the new hope for Africa means a lot for your leadership and your significant belief in the power of young people to have a greater force for Africa. As you know, it's almost a song that young people are the greatest majority of our continent. And so if you really care about the future of Africa, you must care about the young people. And thank you very much. And I welcome you very much. And we will have a warm discussion. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't want to interrupt you, that's why. Okay, meanwhile, we're having the discussion with our ambassador. Please feel free to ask your questions on the chat box. Please forward your most engaging questions on the chat box. Meanwhile, from the communication team, a very fruitful message was shared. Hence, I want to share with the ones who haven't read it. But it's so engaging that I'm sure our ambassador would love to hear it too. Okay, so it says, as the youngest continent in the world, Africa is rich in young and vibrant human resource, the greatest of all her resources like you and me. Cheers to being the greatest asset of our Africa. The use is the core demographic in the use and building of disruptive new technologies and global networks. Young people are essential assets worth investing in, creating a multiplier effect. Thus, it is highly important to educate them in the field as diplomatic skills are the means to achieve global peace. Young individuals can create a positive social impact that is needed in a nation on a long-term perspective. The importance of youth leadership in diplomacy cannot be overstated. We can provide innovative and experience-based solutions to a new and unprecedented global problems. Young people today are passionate about social change and more politically aware than ever before. The world is changing and we must change with it. Increased youth leadership in diplomacy is the first of many changes we need, is what was shared from our communication team. Thank you so much, Yasmin, from our communication team for sharing such a fruitful message while unpacking the session today. Ambassador Hawa, the floor is yours to deliver the message you want to deliver to our young leaders from all over Africa here. You can go forward, please.
Thank you very much.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
I'll take it from there and I will have like a warm discussion with Ambassador. I set questions for her and I would like the Ambassador to share, because this is like an inspirational journey for you and the young people, definitely. I'd like you to share like your leadership journey. How did it all start?
Yeah.
What motivated you to move forward?
Absolutely. Starting from the beginning, I was born in Somalia and I had completed my O-level schooling, some in Somalia and some in Italy, and hence why I speak Italian fluently. And I did my higher education, moved to UK, but before I moved to UK, I got married, I had a child. But then when I moved to the UK, I started doing my higher education in the UK while being a mother and working full time. And when I finished my higher education, I worked up to the master degree. Then I worked as in NGOs, both voluntary and statutory and sectors, and worked as also an independent researcher from different research companies. In the meantime, doing that, I used to follow situation in my country via media. I always felt the need to go back to the country and to be part of the peace process and stabilization of development of the country. By then, it was 20 years past that I was, away from my country. But again, I had a child, very small child. I could not leave her on her own. So I had to be a mother first. The urge to return the country and my connection to the continent was getting stronger by the day. In 2012, I took 3-month unpaid leave from the work that I was doing then in the UK and left my daughter because then she was old enough to leave with to be living with a family without me and to travel back to Somalia after, I think that was 2012, it was 25 years away from the country. So when I went back to the country and I networked among government officials, I visited in various government and NGO establishments, took part of numerous social and political reconciliation, training and of traditional elderly on the draft constitution in direct election, because then an elderly was responsible to select MPs and at that time, because we had a transitional federal government, we were going to becoming a recognized federal government then. So by doing that, I left my footprint everywhere. I came back to the UK after 3 months, decided to look for a job opportunities in Somalia, national and international. Then I get a job with NRC, Norwegian Refugee Council, attached to the Ministry of Education as a technical advisor. Moved from UK to Somalia, working as an expert in there with the government. Slowly developed my network among the government officials, among other people, left my footprint, shortlisted cabinet candidates 3 times while I was there, but not selected. All the time, the end, I was kicked out. Then finally in 2015, I became part of the cabinet as a Minister of Health. Since then, I have been part of the government as a minister, as a senior advisor, and then recently as an ambassador of Zambia. That's how I started completely from UK, Italy, UK to Somalia. So that's my journey.
Wow, thank you very much. And from your story, I learned 2 things: the story, resilience, and focus. And as young people, they shouldn't, lose focus in what they should accomplish and what they should desire. So, in your journey as a diplomat, as a leader, as a mother, as an activist, and what are the key challenges that you've faced that you should share with young people, mostly like young ladies on the platform?
Yes, absolutely.
Stand on their feet here.
Yeah, absolutely. Initially, it was, as I told, that I was a mother. I was a single mother, by the way. And it was difficult for me to care for my child, as well as, pursuing my feeling, my need to do something for my country. Slowly, I got support from the family, from friends and connected people and all of that. But the major thing was when I came back to Somalia after 25 years living in the West, the issue was a cultural shock. When I went there, people used to think I wasn't fit enough to, be part of the community, but represented the community because of the diverse kind of influence that I had during my time living, abroad. So slowly, I had to kind of understand the culture and embed the culture and feel the way people need me to react and need me to do something. So to be part of the community, that was the issue initially. But then when they get used to me and my character and my personality, they forgot about all of that. But initially it was, oh, she's from the West, because anyone in Somalia, I think I can see some Somali women, girls in there, they know the issue of being the West and the Africa, something like that. That was the issue. But later on, I in a very hard, thing, I had to leave some of my attitude outside and act, culturally appropriately within the community.
Wonderful. That's touching. And Ambassador Hawa, you are a diplomat right now, and at African Rebirth, one of our strong pillars is training diplomats, young diplomats. I know it's not the routine back home. You are not oriented to be a diplomat. You are just deployed on melts of loyalty or connections, as you are. But why should young people embrace diplomacy, in the sense that why is it important for young people to engage in diplomatic attitudes, training right now before they assume offices?
I think it's very, very important, because there is a 2 kind of diplomatic skills, which is a traditional one, the one people use language, written, oral communication, negotiation, networking, blah, blah, blah. And also the modern one, which is We now use digital technology, big data, brand management, public relations, campaigning, using social media, and all of them. You can, if you have a diplomacy, you can maneuver around between community, between people, between countries, and you can, at ease, you can actually connect with people without problem. But if you, I won't say lacking diplomacy, but if you have the smooth character that you can, adapt to different way of, dealing with things, obviously it's easy for you to grasp some of the skills of diplomatic skills and move on with it. It's quite important. But also diplomacy is not only the traditional skills and the modern ones. It's about capability. The people has a capacity. How can they do the job that they're supposed to be doing? Commitment. Are they committed to the job? Communication. I would say communication all the time. Number one, communication. Number two, communication. Number three, communication. The person, if he cannot or she cannot communicate, she will not get anywhere with the life or with the professional, and kind of, drives. Because if you have communication issues, you need to work on that. This is very important. Discipline. You have an appointment, you are punctual, you have to have a discipline in terms to do, the diplomatic, and arena well. But these kind of capacity, you can take it to everywhere. You have to be influential also, because you need to connect with people, you need to influence people, you need to make sure you don't overpower people, but you have to put your ideas through with very much, without people even noticing sometimes. So this capacity that gives you diplomatic kind of, skills, you can use it in different places, within your family, within your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, mother, anyone. So it's very important.
Wow. So I like how you channel it, that you can use those skills in actual everyday life. And talking about diplomacy, people think of our country's representation. This is a life, like real life practical experiences.
Absolutely.
And in your experience, I know you've engaged with so many diplomats.
But
Anyone saying something? Okay.
Yes. I do have a question. What exactly do you mean by communication skills? Is it just the communication skill we need in any job-related expertise, or is there any special kind of communication skills you're referring when you say it's a must-do in diplomacy?
Listening is one of the communication skills.
Not
only talking. It's the best advice that one of the, I don't know, in English diploma, and someone advised to listen more and to talk less. That's the communication as well. Because more you listen, more you observe whatever information you're given, and then you can elaborate and, digest, and then come up with a good answer rather than just talking and forgetting what people are saying. So communication is talking and listening is part of the communication. That's communication skills as well. Empathetic listener. When people are talking to you, you don't listen just because you have to listen. You need to be empathetic about it. And building trust also is part of the communication, because if you communicate with people, you listen to people, you respond to people in a way that is very respectful and persuasively, in a multiple forms, it will help you that as well.
Absolutely.
I see. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, good. In your interaction with the other diplomats, and this is like something I take personal, when you interact with other African diplomats and other countries' diplomats from other parts of the world, what are the things that African diplomats lack that sometimes they go and negotiate deals that don't really comply or help real Africans? What is it? Is it intimidation? Is it confidence? Is it knowledge? Because most of them are not educated about diplomacy. What is it lacking? And what is other diplomats, beating Africans on?
To be honest with you, I won't say African. This is a general thing. Some people are that we have a very great, diplomatic team within African groups in Zambia, for instance. We have, weaknesses that is there as well in every human being. And also the similar thing with other groups. There's European groups, there's American groups, there's Asian groups.
Yeah.
We have different groups. Within African group, I'm a very much active within that group. And also Somalia, as you know, is part of Arab League as well. And I'm part of also Arab League groups, which is, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Iran. All of these communities also are part of my community. So it is nothing to do with African only. It's to do with individuals, what the background, what kind of experience they have, and all of that.
I'll be hard here, or I'll be hard on it.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
No. I'm gonna be hard here on the reason why I'm not saying that we don't have good diplomats, but the results we see doubts the strength and the capacity of those diplomats. For example, in terms of bilateral relationship and negotiations, why is it that we always don't get deals that benefits us like other people to the maximum? So that's where I question.
It's about, I think where you lead in your question, I can just, I might be wrong, but the way I understood is each country have interests from different countries that, stay within the country.
Yes.
For example, let's say Somalia, we have numerous ambassadors, placed in Somalia. Each country, they have a different relationship with Somalia, for instance. So it's depend of so many things between the countries, not the diplomat representation itself. Depend of the interest that country have from the other country, what kind of relationship those countries have, the interest between two countries, without looking the character of the person, the ambassador is in there.
Yeah.
Just alone, the interest between two countries can make it stronger or weaker the ambassador. Do you get me now?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So nothing to do with the personal capacity, experience, discipline, influence, all of that. No, nothing to do. Yes, there is some weakness. Sometimes there is someone is disciplined less than others, someone communicates better than others, someone influential more than others, but more is to do with the interests.
Okay. Thank you. Please reserve your questions. We're going to have a Q&A. Reserve your questions, and then let's have first Ambassador Hawa to dissect the great questions of the day. And speaking about that, let's come back to let's narrow it now to young people and how relevant it is to young people. Mm-hmm. Much of parts of Africa is associated with conflicts, and conflicts that are participated by young people to the greatest percentage. The people who start it are not young people, but they are ignited into it. So how can those diplomatic skills of negotiating, of communication, of discipline that you're sharing, contribute to peace building in Africa?
I think, to me personally, and our younger people represent an opportunity for our continent. The future depends on them as well. With 60% of the entire continent are aged below 25 years old. So you can see how powerful they are, how they can maneuver in all the continent where they want to take it to. But ultimately, they are shaped by political, economic, and the social and security context that they find themselves in. So that's why a lot of time they are associated and are linked to violence or activities like, disruption of activities. Even though that is one, kind of narratives that we hear all the time, yet in the country, there's numerous of them contributors to African youth of peace and security, and most of them are still unseen, understated, and undocumented. The reason is very much, is to do with capacity, resources, connection, visibility, and all of that. But how can they do something about it? How can they contribute to the peace building of the continent? I can illustrate few examples. They do a lot of things in the continent, in the different countries that really, my country as well. They play a prominent role to foster dialogue and to prevent violence, because without them, we don't have even the human capital that we need. Most of the time, you go back to the youth people and ask them to do something and be part of the interfaith dialogue, conflict prevention, cultural tolerance thing. They very, vocal. They use different platforms. They very much digital. They do workshops. They do public campaigns. They do social media. They do sensitization. They do activities to consolidate and democratization, to prevent extremist ideologies and terrorism. So what is missing, what's lacking for them to, enhance that and use that fully is resources. Because of the lack of resources in the country, within themselves, financial resources to implement intervention activity, limited technical capacity to engage and in intensive and consuming advocacy intervention programs, limited access to the community sometimes because they cannot access to the authority, for instance, to the resources. So advice for me to give them is start from the lower level, start from wherever they are, within the neighbor as well, within something smaller, and bring that one up. And whenever there is any opportunity, just to do it. Because when I went back to Somalia, if I was, if I didn't have the tenacity to move forward and to do whatever I want to do and to persist, people were telling me, you know what, there's nothing to do for you here. You just to go back where you came from, because it is, here is it's to do with the female and male it's gender issues. It's gender issues in Somalia. There is nothing, because we don't have nothing for men, let alone you. What can we give you? I pushed. I'm telling you, 3 times I was shortlisted. The end, I wasn't expecting even to get it, to be honest with you, because that's how much competitive the position was. But then at one point something happened, there was an issue, conflict between the communities, whatever, and they said we need a young, educated people from diaspora. So 20 of us, they put in there as a ministries, and then we performed really well. So that is when they learned that we could do better than whatever they thought they were doing. So I think I would say young people, push your agenda. Try to do all you can to push your agenda, because you don't expect anyone to give you what you want. You take it. You demand and you take it. Resource will come. Capacity will come. Experience, with experience, you will get the capacity. And then there's also nowadays, there is EU, what do you call it, EU Commission and Economic Community Regional Mechanism, that there's a lot of recommendation about empowering youth. And the countries are expected to deliver that. So make sure you know what's your right, make sure what you're doing, how you get what you want, and then just to push your agenda. Insist, and then you will get there. That's my advice to them.
Absolutely. That's $1 million statement. You have to earn it. You have to push it. No one can make you push it to that limit. Very good, statement. Towards the end of our discussion, Ambassador, and the young people here on the platform, they want to be diplomats, they want to be leaders. What key practical ways can they be those outstanding diplomats like yourself? I'm sure you would be very happy to see young people taking over, these ambassador roles, becoming ministers in their countries, honorables, and other steps. What key steps, what key practical steps, specifically in diplomacy, to be one?
I think if they want to into the diplomatic arena, it's some of them, they go to university and study, the program or the education program of diplomacy. Some of them have a practical kind of, education. I won't say always, university is the only way to do it. But I know people who have been doing this thing for long, and they never been to, they never studied diplomacy per se. But yes, they have a degree from different background, but they have capacity and they've been in the system for a long time. So I would say 5 things that you need to really look into it, your personality. One of them is your capacity. Just build your capacity, whatever area you are interested in. Let me switch off my phone, and make sure you are committed whatever you're doing, because I have seen some people who are really, they're doing something today and they moved on doing something else tomorrow. They're not consistent with their kind of process or pursuing things that they want to do. Make sure you communicate. I am kind of I don't know, maybe I repeat myself more than once. Communication is very important. Communicate with whoever you're going to be dealing with, whether it's your boss, your teacher, your professor, whoever. Communication. Discipline yourself. Discipline, when I'm saying discipline, is when you must be punctual, you must be reliable, you must be hardworking, well represented, a decent character, someone people can rely on, trustworthy, good judgment, a display of abundant tact, able to work under pressure as well. So you need to have all of that. So it's not something that you learn from university, because university, it teaches you a subject, but those things you learn through the life. You learn it from family, friends, interpersonal relationships, and all of that. Influence. Some people have influence because of their family background, the friends or connection they have before. Good for you if you have that. Some people don't have that. So unfortunately, those who don't have that, they need to work extra hard for them to create a network for themselves. But once people know, trust me, once people know your good character, your capability, your commitment, your discipline, they will forget your background. And that is where you take it to a different level. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Those are fundamental questions: capacity, commitment, communication, discipline, punctuality, character, able to relate with others. So, and that's what we emphasize at African Rebut, punctuality. And you brought in the question of punctuality because it's not a secret. We're all Africans here. We have a problem of punctuality. We behave with it. We have the biggest time in the world, we are so slow doing that. So punctuality is...
I have a problem of opposite of punctuality. When I have appointment and they say 3:30, I'll be there at 3:20 or 3:10. People might come up 4 o'clock. So
yeah. Wonderful. And again, my last question, and we'll open up to the Q&A, is like, I'll still come to the question of peace building. What causes conflict definitely is not like lack of, most of it is not like lack of diplomatic skills. It's also part of unattended youth challenges, like unemployment, like, cultural conflicts in societies. How can young people be catalysts for change amidst all these circumstances? We know that governments cannot have all the funds to fund them. We know that sometimes conflicts are powered by geopolitical forces and interests that young people are thrown in. How can we survive? What key skills can we help us to survive this harsh environment?
Can you repeat that question? Are you talking about social change, or are you talking about peace building?
Like peace building. Yeah. How can we have these skills? Because we young people are in the middle of something. The government doesn't fund that much. There is a lot of tons of unemployment skill in unattended challenges. There are also geopolitical structures. Absolutely. We can't also deny that. It's not always the government, but also there are geopolitical forces that actually influence conflict in a person. So as young people, how can we avoid these harsh environments and create or stand out for peace in our societies?
They are always part of it, young people. What they don't understand is the power they have. They don't understand, because I can see, I was part of, just an example I give you, I was a part of the election, in the last election process in Zambia. I was part of observers of the elections in Zambia. Younger people in Zambia, amazingly, 3 o'clock in the morning, they woke up to queue to vote the president that they wanted and the people that they wanted. 3 o'clock, there was no, disruption. There was no conflict. We didn't know ourselves what was going to happen. We didn't know whether there's going to be any change. They kept quiet until last minute. Peacefully, they stayed in line for 6 hours, because we were going through different, police polling station and checking out whatever was happening and all of that. They stayed there under the sun 9 hours, 10 hours for them to vote. That is commitment. That is a peace process, working towards a peace process. And I have to say something else. 70% of workers on that day were a women. The lead of the all, polling centers, the leader of that place is a woman. 70% were women, and they were doing a very good job. When I met the president, H.E, I informed, I said, President, women are really doing a good job in this country. You need to acknowledge that. But guess what? We have a speaker as a woman speaker. The first woman speaker in Zambia, they just elected now. Anyway, the younger people can do a lot, but it doesn't start from the top. The first thing when you're trying to build a peace, peace, the first thing is dialogue and effective social and political reconciliation. Who's going to vote? If 60% of the population is you are going to vote. You are going to make a difference. So you make sure you vote someone who's going to be a good leader. You make sure you protect the democracy. You make sure you include the minorities. Everything that you do is going to be, you will see the impact in the future. But if you think something is small or something that you're going to give you, maybe pressure just a few minutes or maybe 1 month or whatever, that is going to have an impact on your life, the generation to come, your children, your grandchildren, and all of that. That is one of the things. The second thing is political power sharing at all levels. When there is a peace building, people have to share the power. Younger people, they need to make sure that happens, because if younger people stand up for themselves, trust me, the older people will listen, because there is no way they can get away with anything they do if younger people say, no, this is not acceptable. We need this thing happening. Participation, participate, do something, and request for quality representation, because it's not about all quantity, it's about quality as well. When they say people are gender representation or gender equity, I always say it's not about the women, it's about the quality. Which woman you're going to select to represent a woman? Because you can always get a man who can represent better a woman than a woman sometimes. Exactly. But you need to make sure there is a quality representation and leadership rather than just a number of people that represent you. Not only active agencies, because when it comes to power sharing, people select to be, the active agencies. What I mean by that is when there is a, a war or whatever, civil war or whatever happening in the country, those who are actively engaging, leading the war, those people get the most of the power when there is a peace building, because they need to be, quiet and giving whatever they needed. But you make sure younger people include other people as well, because it's not only them, other people have suffered as well. The participation of women, youth, minority, again, look into that. The political system arrangement, which is everyone is included, you need to look into that. Security sector transformation, younger people can work with the authority, the security and team, a technical process. They can be part of the technical process of improving the state and human security. Without younger people, that cannot happen as well. So that's also part of the peace process. And also restoring the rule of law. Ensure everyone respects the principles and supremacy of law. So, I mean, equality before the law. Younger people can take part of that and inform the authority if any suspicious thing happening, work with the authority, work with the police, be part of the police, join the military. They can do a lot. They can do a lot.
Thank you very much. So in your presentation and submission, I sense that it all rests and starts with young people. If they decide to stand up, they're unstoppable. So the power of young people to know that they hold the power, the mantra to power in anything, and they can change a lot of things. So thank you very much. I hope people are jotting down some notes. I am. And so all those questions are there. Thank you very much. That was from me. I'll take it back to Alim to go for a Q&A and do the rest of the questions. You have a lot of questions. I must tell you that in the chat. So Alim, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such an insightful presentation. Thank you, Ambassador, for your amazing, insightful presentation. The way you presented it is actually Amazing. And thank you, Enoch. Those were amazing questions which provoked all these discussions. Okay, everybody keep forwarding your questions on the chat box. This might be the only chance you might get to question our dearest ambassador. Okay, so let's start with my question first, right? I get the moderator's privilege. Okay. As a female, especially as a single mom, and as a person who has failed 3 times, I know how hard it must have been. I mean, I think it happens to women everywhere that women have to prove themselves all the way instead of, this is what we call men's privilege, patriarchal world. And we need to hear how you managed to be this unstoppable and how you managed to break through all this and make it this far. What do you advise us young women who want to become a future diplomats, who want to follow your lead? What do you advise us? Is there any way to have this perseverance? What is the take-home message to us young women?
Okay, thank you.
That's the first question.
Yeah. In terms of how did you survive? I believe what is called in majority influence. If you come to a place where all of people think one way and you're on your own, they're going to convince you that they are right and you're wrong eventually. So I believe if you have a support team, I mean, when we went back, all of us at one point in Somalia, we were, I think, around 20 working together from the West, from different countries, Canada, America, me from UK, some of them from Australia. We were all of them technical advisors for the country. And we were, sticking together because we were thinking the same. We had a, similar kind of background and influences. We had slowly, we need to break through the stereotype of West and Africa, something like that. We need to, feel people that we care for the country, we care for the continent, we are here for them, we're not here to take their jobs away from them, and we want to really contribute to the country. Slowly. Initially, it was a little bit, tough. I'm talking about from Somalia when I went there, but then later on, it went better and it got better. That alone, I, as a person myself, maybe I'm hard-headed, someone who doesn't give up easily. If you tell me something today, I go away, I come back tomorrow, I'll tell you the same thing until you say, okay, it is fine that you accepted that. That's what it is. So in terms of getting the job in diplomatic area, I would say not only in diplomatic area, in anywhere, if you can't find any space where there is opportunity of job, you go and volunteer. Ask them if they want a volunteer person to work for them. Start from the bottom up, start from anything. You do the job that no one wants to do it initially. Learn something from there and move on. Trust me, you will get there. If there is no opportunity for you to directly get it. But if there is opportunity, there is application, there is job opportunity, you apply, you go through the process of selection, and then you get it. But if that is not the case, at least you spend 1 day or 2 a week to volunteer the area where you are interested in, and then get in there and do whatever you want to do. I'll advise you to do that. While, of course, you are empowering yourself, educating yourself, getting some kind of, college or whatever you're going to do. Get the skills, knowledge, and also get the practical skills as well. Yeah.
I see. Powerful message. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the questions from our delegates. The first question is, how do young people foster dialogue? Why is that there are fewer young people at the decision-making table where change actually happens?
There's a few women in the decision table as well. I want to say that. I mean, true. From the experience, you need to, because whenever I go to the places, they call me to attend some of the events or somewhere where I want to, they want me to give a speech or whatever. I look at the environment, I look at the audience, and I see why there is only 2 women. Where are the women? Where is all men sitting here? What are they doing here? Yeah. So you see, it's about, this is what I was telling you. No one is going to give you anything. You go and get it. If they don't give you, ask for it, demand for it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is, because some people, they feel comfortable to have everything. They wouldn't allow you to have a space to penetrate or to get in. So you need to make a space for yourself to get in the place. So that's my answer to you.
I see. Thank you. And the other question is, it seems like there are no resources for young people unless we push or rather take it all by force. So the question is, how do we as upcoming leaders or diplomats leave resources or economic advantage for the generations coming after us?
I would say, first and foremost, look at who you're voting. Because when you're voting for someone, when you're giving a leadership position to someone, make sure he idealizes young people. He has an idea in his mind that he's going to empower younger people. Because when you see what's happening in the West, people who live there, they know that. They read the personality background, the profile, whatever they're going to do. Based on that, some people might say something that they're not going to do in the future. But if they don't say anything, it's worse than saying something. At least they remembered you and they're saying something. And later on, you can make them accountable about it and say, you said something, and now you have to deliver. But if you vote something because it's your cousin or it's your auntie, it's your uncle, or it's your, someone knows someone, then obviously you're not thinking of yourself. For you to think yourself, you choose someone who's right for the country and right for everyone. When I say country, inclusively, including younger people. That's what you have to do.
Interesting. Okay. Another interesting question. Diplomacy tends to be often raised along with politics. Is diplomacy achieved only through politics?
No, absolutely no. I came from the political background because of my background, whatever I've done in the past. Diplomacy and background, they are interrelated in a way that they are interconnected. But someone can be more diplomatic or more knowledge around diplomacy than someone in the political arena. So they have nothing to do with each other. It's about, I think your personality helps. Some people, they born to have some sort of predisposed kind of personality to go into diplomatic arena, and some people they have to learn in a hard way. But they have, for diplomacy and political interlinked, but they're completely two different things.
Two different things. Okay. Okay, another question. How can intercultural understanding be implemented into policy education of youths in Africa?
Oh, cultural appropriateness. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
I think when you go to, when you say in Africa, are we talking about within one country or in the continent, completely in the complete continent? Are we talking about?
Yes, in the continent. Yes, in the continent.
In the continent, yeah. I think it's very, very important, whoever is delivering a job or representing people or doing something, the first thing he has to know is the cultural, relativism of where is he delivering service to and who is delivering service to. So that is why it's so important that sometimes when you're doing research, because I have a research background, when you're doing research, you have to interpret research in a way that the people understand, or people, in a perspective, not the way that you think it is, because you're coming from somewhere else. It's very important because some research, they say the same thing, but the meaning could be completely different because of the cultural relativism and understanding all of that. So, and it has a value added to if someone has a understanding of the culture. Me, born in Somalia, grew up in London, in Italy, and then have spent a lot of time in UK. I can say I can grasp three cultures interlinked in a different way, and I can adapt their lifestyles easily than someone who just stayed in one place and don't understand what is going on. It takes time for the person to get that, but definitely understanding of culture is very important. So that's why when you are employing someone in Africa, this is why some of the African countries now, they're saying no technical advisories or senior advisory from Western countries, because it's very difficult for them to understand or to transfer the knowledge the way people want it to be transferred to. So it's quite important, cultural relativism.
Okay, but the question again also emphasizes on how can we implement it?
It's not about implementation, about when you deliver something, you have to take into account of the cultural aspect of it. If you don't know, read. If you don't know, look, research, get information. It takes time. It's not something that you can just read and get it. You can read it and not get it at the same time. So you need to really be with the people and get that kind of feeling for you to transfer it and do it the right way. It's so important, but it's not something written in the books or something that you can read from the, what do you call it, and social media or whatever. It's something that you have to feel it, engage it, understand it, and embed it, and then deliver it.
I see. Okay. Another question. It says, I see lots of my colleagues starting NGOs, businesses that tackle the problems and challenges of the world, such as SDGs. Often I get discouraged and feel useless or incompetent because I'm so passionate about doing something, but for the resources like fund. But when we talk about diplomacy, do you only equip yourself with skills through trainings like this one, or engaging in those projects means you're diplomatic? Meaning in those SDG, when you engage in those projects, does it mean that you're diplomatic, or do you need trainings like this to become a diplomat?
I think in diplomacy, you learn through life. I mean, when you're engaging with these people, you do something, you get an answer, you had an idea, the impact of what you said, and you restrain next time and you say something else, it makes a positive impact and you use next time. It's kind of, I think it's a learning curve. Even me now, I'm not expert of anything. I'm learning. Every day I see something that I said it and the impact is not the right way, the way I want it. I move around and I change it and do something else. So it's about learning. I think whatever NGO that you work in, whatever other company that you work in, you learn diplomacy through your life. No one masters diplomacy. We're all learning, and we're in a different stage, but we are learning. We're in the learning curve.
Perfectly said. I second that as well. Okay, and another question. As a young person in my country, how do I reduce stereotypes in terms of controversial issues like gender inequality? And what steps should I make to begin inside my country?
What you do is one of the time that I was education policy, I think was part of those doing education policy in the country. There is a language that is used that will make the intent and make an impact, negative impact. But if you walk around and rephrase it in a way that is acceptable within the community, then you can easily put your idea to the table. So for instance, when you say feminism ideology, I don't consider myself a feminist. I consider myself humanist. I feel human are equal, male and female. If I say feminist, people will see me as a negative thing because this feminist ideology, feminist term is from the West. But when I say human is created by God, Allah, everyone is equal in front of Allah. Everyone understands that. So that is the way you have to maneuver. You need to make sure you don't use a stronger language that people see and be threatened by it. Use it in a way that people understand easily and not feel that they're going to be imposed something to it.
I see. Well said. Okay, another question. What do you think is the most difficult challenge that African diplomats face?
Yeah, the question came back again. I think we Africans, we have this is very tricky question. This is very tricky question. Probably, I would say we Africans give more credit to non-Africans diplomatic representation rather than our own people because of too many things that I also mentioned it initially. It was interest of the country as well. So it is not as I want to say it's a what do you call it? It's a challenge or something negative completely. I wouldn't say it, but we feel that we belong to each other. So sometimes there is no oh gosh, I don't know how to put this one through because it's quite challenging question. It's quite a very sensitive question as well. So I would say it's to do with let me just remain that it's to do with the interest of the country. But there is no any other challenge here.
I see. Okay. Okay. Another question. If I want to become a successful diplomat, but at the same time, I do not agree with diplomatic policy taken in my country, does this affect me, or do I have to agree with my country's policy?
If you don't like it, then you stay away from it. That's all. You don't have to be there. You don't have to agree with anything, because you have to really, you need to be loyal to your country. If you don't agree with anything that happened in your country, then you stay home, do something else. Just come back when there is other people that you agree with. Otherwise, you can't present.
Yes, sure. Sounds very interesting. Okay. Next question. Do you believe in modern diplomacy being as effective as a traditional diplomacy? What advice would you give to young people on how to go about modern diplomacy?
I think they are both very important, because if you see the traditional diplomacy is writing and then emailing, and you know, the people they used to do the traditional thing, and the modern one is technology that now we have it, everyone is using it. You need to be you need to have a good PR, you need to be, you know, using social media, you need to do there is a lot of good thing about the modern diplomacy, and a lot of good thing about the old diplomacy. But I think the modern diplomacy, you can get someone to do the job for you, because, you know, there's a lot of younger people who are technologically advanced. You can use that. But the important thing is traditional diplomacy. That is something that really you need to have that one. Otherwise, no one is going to give you that, which is skills, language, written, oral communication, negotiation, networking, crisis management. There's all of that. I mean, that is something that you have to have it. But in terms of the modern one, if you can have it, because there's a lot of my friends that I know that don't have that, but they have people around them that does the job for them. So I would say traditional one is more important.
Yes, I see. Very good. H.E. And up next, as a continent, we have made strides in moving towards gender equality through commendable diplomacy from women across the globe, supported with legislation such as gender quotas, which are part of the Sustainable Development Goals. The question is, what policies, if present, are being used to put young people in positions of active diplomacy? If not, which policies or legislation can young people diplomatically fight to achieve? Interesting.
Really, what policy is in place so far? I don't know about that. But what I know is we are, how many we are in terms of gender equality? I think an African diplomatic team, 5 or 6 of us are women. There's in the vast majority women, represented countries sent women in the diplomatic arena. So that shows that Africa is moving towards gender equality. Probably, maybe we need to go back to gender equality to make sure empower men. For, you know, the way that we're doing now, men need to be empowered. And I have been to also Rwanda just recently. There was probably, I think it's 70% of the MPs are female. The speaker is female, and also deputy speaker are female as well. Now that we have a Zambia, the speaker is female, and the second deputy speaker also is a female. I think Kenya also some similar thing. So in terms of gender equality, we are moving forward quite fast. We are getting there, maybe passing by as well than other countries. In terms of youth, there's a lot of MPs in my country are youth. There's a lot of ministries that are youth. There's a lot of opportunity for youth now in my country, empowering youth a lot. But in the continent, really, I don't know how many youth are being, given a platform to shine or to do the job. But in Somalia, a lot of youth are really given the opportunity to elect and elected as well.
I see, but there are no quotas, right? Like that of gender, we don't have any youth.
We have a quota, 30% quota of women representation in the parliament, but we never reached that. We had initially the first. We had 12, I think we had 14, but then 22, something like that. We are aiming to get 30 and hopefully pass by 30 as well. But in terms of youth, absolutely represented in the country.
I see. Okay. Okay. Next question. It says, how have you managed to balance all areas of your life, especially your professional life and social life?
I didn't balance. I'm telling you that I did not balance. I did not balance. Yes, I am a mother, and I try to be really a good mother to my child. I have one daughter, but you always pursue something and you neglect something else in your life. It's a nature. I don't think I balance, but I try to do all I can to make sure my life is balanced. But I had my weakness myself.
I see.
I was more into academic studies and professional work than any other thing.
Okay. Okay. Another question says, Dear Ambassador, I believe Africa has indigenous way of negotiating and solving skills. So how do you think this asset can be incorporated into modern diplomacy? Any experience you know or any role model in the diplomacy area in Africa?
Yes, I mean, I can tell you one example. We have an elderly in Somalia who decide who is going to be representing the country and MPs and so on, especially the South side. We have a different, we are different kind of state members, but the South side, well, elderly have a lot of power and deciding what to do. You can go with a modern diplomacy with the elderly. You need to go back to the traditional diplomacy and learn myself the traditional way of dealing with things. Even African countries, they have a different kind of, an Asian and very old culture that you need to learn. And depending when you go in, if I'm going to see achieve myself in Zambia, I need to very much make sure, first of all, to get information about what it's like, what to do, how do I behave, how do I say, say hi, you need to gather information and act on it for you to be, respected and also accepted. So that is the same thing. So Africa, traditionally, we have a lot of traditional kind of activity and behavior. I mean, to be honest with you, I would love to learn if someone had that put out there and we would learn it. It's very nice to learn from them. In my country, I know from area that I came from how to deal with them and what's expected of me. But I think in other area might have different kind of, attitude and character as well.
I see. Okay, another interesting question. How did your multi-linguistic skills help you in making you a unique diplomat? And how can knowing many languages help becoming a diplomat?
It does help because I am a very good friend with the ambassador from Italy because we speak the same language. It's me, we speak just Italian. I was dealing with Arab as well, but still I'm learning now. So hopefully I will learn in 1 year or two, whatever. Somali, when I'm dealing with my country, obviously I will, talk to them in my language. And my friends, some of them, majority, all of them speak English. Some of them speak French, but we understand each other. If there is any issues, then they have interpretation or whatever. I think a language is very much important. If you want to speak to someone who doesn't hear you, if you learn how to talk to them in a sign language, it makes you more connected to the person than when you don't understand. So I feel familiar with the person when they speak my own language, culturally connected. And you get more out of the person when you speak their language than when you don't. So thank God now I have 3 languages, but hopefully I will learn more in the future as well.
I see. Well, there is a very interesting question. It says, there is a lot of women empowerment, which is a great thing, but in the process of empowering women, we have forgotten the male child. How do we empower the male child without demotivating the girl child? Because empowering one gender in the current world we live in demotes the other gender that's not motivated or empowered. Since we're in the process of equality, how can we empower both genders equally? Because people have the misconception that because you are a male, especially in Africa, you're already empowered, which is not the case.
I respond to that, and empowering male and female starts from home. You need to empower your child and your daughter, your son and your daughter equally. That foundation will help them throughout life. If you give your child, if you tell your child, your son, he's going to be a king one day, he's going to be really demoralized when he's not going to be a king, because outside world is completely different than inside world. So I think as a mother and a father, we need to make sure the children are brought up, balanced in a way that they know what their responsibilities are, what kind of world is out there, and also the equality that exists. They are similar to the sisters, and also when they go out, they will reflect on that and do similar things. We are talking about gender equality from outside, but we forget what we do inside the house. How do we differentiate between son and daughter? I think empowering starts from home. When we empower that, and then it's going to be, balanced world outside. Yes, it's true that nowadays women are more powerful than men, and men are being felt completely lost in the process. And I believe that yes, we can. Empowered women can do something about it, but I think all depend on whatever happened in the childhood and what happened in the family home, and how they are brought up and how they are built as a human when they were growing up. So that's when we need to go back and correct that.
Yeah, I see. And also empowering a woman is empowering the generation. Well, I'm a stronger advocate.
We do that. We say that, but we need a balance. We need a man as well. We can't empower women only if we can empower a man. So let's just empower both of them, bring them up together, and give opportunity equally.
Yes, rightfully said. Okay, a follow-up question. Please give examples of activities that young people should engage to build up their diplomatic skills.
Oh, there is so many of them. There's so many of them. We're talking about now traditional diplomatic skills. When they are going to have an interaction with the traditional leaders that make decisions in our countries, in the continent. I believe every country is the same. You have chiefs, we have different names in our country. All the people have people who mean something to them. So start from there and make sure you know how to react, how to interact with them. From there on, you will see how to interact with your teachers, and then move on how to relationship with your interpersonal relationships with your friends, girlfriends, outside the community, and everyone. I think it doesn't end diplomacy. It's not something that ends in the diplomatic arena only. It goes from the home all the way to your life and everywhere. So whatever you do, learning diplomacy, I give you 5 kind of, a main thing that you need to be thinking about when you're doing it. But reaction from people will tell you if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And then, rephrase it, change it, correct it, and then learn it and move on.
Interesting. Okay. Also, another question: how can we, the young youth, turn the vision of the country towards raising the rule of law to reduce poverty and improve youth education, but using a diplomatic dialogue with the government?
Government, as I said before, elect a leader, not a follower. Elect a leader. You can't elect a leader because 60% of the population is you. If you don't elect, no one is going to elect him. Majority of all African countries apart from Somalia, who has now indirect election, they have one person, one vote system. That is your power. Use that one. Make sure they are accountable. If they don't do it, get rid of them. Get someone else. Change it. Represent someone else. If you bring even youth people, you said, why young people are not given space? You give space yourself. I know there is a resources involved. There is no money, for them that to go through the election process or whatever. Trust me, sometimes money is not needed. If you persist and you pursue what you want to do, and you have a backup of your people, you get what you want to go.
Yeah. Yes, rightfully said. Also, another question: how important is it to educate individual with proper guidance to be a great diplomat?
Education is one thing. Experience and the character is another thing. You go to university, get a diplomatic kind of, an undergraduate, postgraduate, international relations, whatever you want to do. Anything that gives you kind of diplomatic capacity, you can do it. But do that. But in the meantime, I think you need to be working in the environment, going to volunteering, whatever, your Minister of Foreign Affairs, for instance, if not your embassy, for instance, because I have a lot of people who come to my embassy as on voluntary basis. I give them, they come here, they stay 3 months, 2 months with me, they move on, do something else. That will give them experience to understand what is going on. They obviously they don't go through the sensitive information of the country, but They go through the work we do, they see how do we function, they part of the meeting, when you take in all of that, so they can get some information from there. Get the education skills that you need, practical skills that you need, volunteer if you want to volunteer, and apply a job, and then slowly, you can start from the bottom and then move up from there.
See, very good. Is there a right and wrong kind of diplomat? Is having different kind of culture and custom all over the world one of the difficulties we might face when trying to achieve international diplomacy?
There is someone who said an ambassador is an honest man or woman sent to lie about for the good of the country, her country or his country. There is no right and wrong. You need to, whatever situation you are in, obviously you are selling your country to a different country. You need to make sure your country is sold. So you need to say something that doesn't compromise your country's integrity or country's value or whatever. So without really undermining whoever you're talking to, the host country or whatever. So there is no right and wrong. Depends on the situation and in the context that you are in and what kind of attitude you're expected to do. You are with your friend, you can openly speak to whatever you want to speak about it, but you are with the president, you're conveying information of your country. It's completely different. It is not one way. It is completely different thing.
I see, yes. Okay, one last question. It says, in my country, Uganda, most of the top political positions are being spearheaded by women, but they really don't have power of attorney. They can't decide for their own. All the sensitive positions are made by head of state. So how should this be dealt with accordingly?
First of all, diplomatic represent the diplomacy and representative of the country. They don't decide for the country. Depend on what kind of level of decision they're going to make. There is something that I decide myself, something that I have to go back to the foreign affairs and I ask for it, something that I have to go back to the president and I have to ask the decision. So it is not just depend on what kind of decision she's talking about. Is she or he? The person asks question. Is it he or she?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's a he, yeah. I think it depends on what kind of decision the person has to make. So it's not only, we don't decide everything. We have to go back to the country sometimes. Thank you.
Okay, that pretty much sums up all the questions we had today. Thank you, Ambassador, for taking the time to take all these questions and answering them all.
Thank you very much.
So many comments up here saying you're such a wonderful diplomat. You're an inspiration for all women out there. Thank you for all your wonderful answers. And a lot of thank you, Ambassador. So I'll give
thank you very much. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
The floor is yours. Yep. Okay.
She just ran. Come on.
I know. I think she was late for something. Maybe that's why she had to leave early. Anyways, I hope you had a good stay, everyone. I hope you learned a lot from this. It was such an engaging conversation. Thank you for all your interactive questions. Yeah.